Welcome to our deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at Euripides Medea.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got some translated excerpts from the play,
Yep.
and we're going to really dig into it.
Okay.
The story, the characters, and even get a glimpse into ancient Greek society along the way.
Sounds good. It's a play that tackles some really heavy themes. Betrayal, revenge, and the consequences of letting rage just run wild.
Yeah. You might be wondering, why did Euripides choose to open the play with the nurse? It's actually quite unusual for a Greek tragedy to start with a slave's perspective, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yeah. And her words immediately pull us into the tense atmosphere of the house. She yearns for the days before Jason set sail on the Argo, the journey that ultimately brought Medea to Corinth.
Right.
It's almost as if she's saying, if only they'd stayed put, none of this would be happening.
Yeah. There's a real sense of foreboding in her words, right? She's clearly terrified of Medea,
Oh, yeah.
describing her as someone who thinks deeply and won't tolerate this abuse. And to make matters worse, Medea's two young sons are completely oblivious to the turmoil surrounding them.
Yeah, that contrast between their innocence and their mother's brewing rage is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It really sets the stage for the tragedy that's about to unfold.
Then we hear Medea, but only her voice.
Okay.
A cry of pure anguish from somewhere within the house. Such a striking way to introduce her, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
We feel her pain before we even see her.
Yeah. It's a brilliant way to build anticipation and establish her emotional state.
Right.
When she finally appears before the women of Corinth, she presents herself as this rational, articulate woman who has been deeply wronged. She's seeking their understanding, their empathy for her situation.
And she gets it, at least to some degree. The chorus, representing the women of Corinth, has heard her laments and responds with sympathy for her plight. But it's in her next speech that Medea truly shines.
Yeah.
She delivers this incredibly powerful monologue about the challenges faced by women in ancient Greece.
It's not just a general complaint either. She gets very specific, talking about the financial burdens of marriage, the near impossibility of divorce, and the immense societal pressure women face.
Oh, wow.
She says, "We are bought and sold like merchandise, expected to bear children and be obedient to our husbands."
It's such a searing indictment of the inequality between men and women. It really makes you wonder how much has really changed over the centuries.
Right.
But back to the story. Enter King Creon, who delivers the decree that will set Medea on her path to revenge. Banishment for her and her sons.
Creon is clearly afraid of her. He calls her clever and skilled in many evils, convinced that she poses a threat to his daughter, Jason's new bride.
Medea, of course, objects to this decree.
Right.
But she does it in a very calculated way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
There's almost a veiled threat beneath her pleas.
Absolutely. She appears submissive, pleading for just one more day to prepare for exile.
Right.
But it's a brilliant manipulation. Creon, thinking he's being merciful, grants her request, unknowingly giving her the time she needs to hatch her revenge.
Then comes Jason, Medea's betraying husband.
Oh, boy.
He tries to justify his actions, claiming he did it all for the good of Medea and their children, that this new marriage secures their future.
But you can even hear how hollow his arguments are. He claims to have their best interests at heart. But his tone is cold, dismissive. It's clear he's moved on and sees Medea and the children as just inconvenient obstacles.
Medea sees right through him. Her rebuttals are sharp, fueled by fury and intellect. She throws his hypocrisy back in his face, highlighting how he's abandoned her after she helped him obtain the golden fleece, even defying her own father for him.
That's right.
It's a confrontation charged with emotion. And just when it seems the situation couldn't get more complicated, King Aigeus of Athens enters the picture. He's passing through Corinth on his way back from the oracle at Delphi, seeking advice on how to have children. Talk about a chance encounter. Medea, always thinking several steps ahead, immediately sees an opportunity here.
Right. She promises Aigeus that she can cure his childlessness with her knowledge of powerful herbs and potions. In return, she secures his pledge of sanctuary in Athens.
So now, not only does she have time, but also an escape route. She's starting to assemble the pieces of a plan that will have tragic consequences.
And it all begins with gifts. Poisoned gifts intended for the princess. A beautiful dress, a gleaming golden crown. These tokens of beauty will become instruments of death.
The scene where the princess receives these gifts is both stunning and horrifying. Imagine the scene. She adorns herself with a poisoned dress and crown, unaware of the deadly fate that awaits her.
And it's not just the princess who falls victim to the poison. Creon, in a desperate attempt to save his daughter, also succumbs to a horrific death. The ripple effects of Medea's actions are devastating.
But even with these deaths, her thirst for revenge isn't quenched. She's not finished yet. There's one final act she must carry out, one that will solidify her place in history as a figure of immense power and sorrow.
Knowing Medea's rage and the depth of her pain, we're left wondering what will become of her children. The tension is almost unbearable.
Yeah. This is where Medea's fury and the terrible choice that she feels forced to make really hit home.
Yeah.
She's already lost everything, her home, her husband, her standing in Corinth.
And in ancient Greece, a woman's security, her entire world, revolved around her husband and children.
Yeah.
To fully grasp the depth of Medea's revenge, we have to understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when she talks about hurting Jason, it's not just about causing him pain. It's about striking at the core of his existence, his children.
Exactly. But even with all that's happened, her decision doesn't come easily. Throughout the play, Euripides gives us glimpses into her internal struggle. We see her wrestle with her love for her sons, knowing the pain that this will cause them, and the pain it will ultimately cause her.
Right. And remember the chorus, those women of Corinth who initially sympathized with her.
Yeah.
They're horrified by what she's planning. They beg her to reconsider, pleading for the lives of her sons.
It highlights the moral complexity of the play. Even those who understand Medea's pain can't condone this act. It forces the audience to confront the boundaries of empathy and justice.
Her final moments with her sons are truly heartbreaking. She kisses them, bids them farewell, and knowing what's to come, it's almost unbearable to read.
Euripides doesn't shy away from the emotional impact, but he uses a clever theatrical technique here. The act itself happens off stage. We hear the children's cries, but we don't see it. It's left to our imagination, making it all the more chilling and effective.
Meanwhile, Jason arrives, frantic to save his sons. He fears Creon's wrath might extend to them, but he's too late. He's met with the devastating news that Medea has already taken their lives.
Imagine his horror, his grief. The confrontation between them is intense, filled with accusations and curses.
Right.
Jason, utterly broken, accuses Medea of monstrous cruelty.
But Medea is unrepentant. She's achieved what she set out to do, inflicted the ultimate pain on the man who betrayed her.
And yet there's this chilling emptiness to her victory. She's achieved her goal, but at a terrible cost. She's utterly alone now, having crossed a line that can never be uncrossed.
The play concludes with her escape from Corinth in a chariot drawn by dragons, a gift from the sun god, Helios. Such a vivid image.
It underscores her connection to the supernatural world, her otherworldly origins.
Right.
But it also speaks to her isolation. She's leaving the human world behind. But she's not exactly ascending to some divine realm either.
She's in the strange in-between space, forever marked by her actions. And Jason, what becomes of him?
He's left completely devastated, cursing Medea's name, lamenting his fate. The chorus reflects on the play's themes: fate, revenge, and the destructive power of unchecked rage.
The ending is so powerful, thought-provoking, it definitely leaves you with more questions than answers. Was Medea justified? Is she a villain, a victim, or both?
And then there's that image of her escaping in the dragon-drawn chariot. It's unforgettable, visually representing her power, but also, as you said, her profound loneliness. It makes you wonder, what will become of her? What does this victory even mean in the face of such loss? It stays with you long after you finish reading or watching the play.
It's amazing how Euripides uses imagery and symbolism to really drive home these themes.
Yeah, like take the golden crown and dress, for example. They're not just beautiful objects, they represent power and deception.
And that motif of poison that runs throughout the play.
Right.
It's like a physical manifestation of Medea's hidden rage, her ability to inflict pain and destruction from within.
Yeah, which makes her manipulation of Creon and Aigeus even more fascinating.
Right. In both cases, she uses her cunning and her words to get what she wants. She understands their desires.
Yeah.
Creon's desire to protect his daughter Aigeus' yearning for an heir.
Right.
And exploits them.
She's a master manipulator, playing on their weaknesses to advance her own agenda.
And let's not forget the dramatic irony that Euripides weaves into the play.
Oh, yeah.
We, the audience, know things the characters don't, which creates this incredible sense of dread.
Like when Creon grants Medea that one day of reprieve.
Right.
He thinks he's being merciful, but we know it's a fatal mistake that seals his fate and that of his daughter.
And poor Jason, he just seems so blind to Medea's rage, her potential for vengeance.
Yeah, he underestimates her at every turn.
Jason represents that patriarchal order that Medea is rebelling against. He sees her as a possession, someone to be controlled and discarded when she's no longer useful.
Right.
It's no wonder she feels such intense anger and resentment.
Yeah.
So after diving deep into this tragedy, what can we take away from Medea all these centuries later?
Well, the play in many ways transcends time.
Right.
It speaks to those universal themes of love, betrayal, revenge, and the complexities of human nature.
It also forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about power, gender, and the way society can marginalize and silence individuals.
Medea is such a complex character.
Yeah.
She's a victim, but she's also a perpetrator.
Yeah.
She's both sympathetic and terrifying, and she makes us question our own notions of morality and justice.
What stood out to you most in this deep dive? Was there a particular scene or theme that resonated with you?
For me, it's the ending. Medea's escape in that dragon-drawn chariot is just so unforgettable. It's a powerful image of her power, but also her profound loneliness.
Right.
She's achieved her revenge, but at a terrible cost, and it makes you wonder what will become of her now. That question and the play's exploration of these timeless themes is something I'll continue to think about.
This has been a fascinating look at Medea. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.